Welcome to Off the Record, a legal podcast.
Hey, welcome to Off the Record, a legal podcast with attorney Rhett Burney. I'm your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today we are diving into the essentials you need to know about family law in South Carolina. Rhett, thanks for joining us today.
Kevin, how are you? Good to see you again.
I'm doing great. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. So tell me, what interested you about practicing family law? And are there any personal reasons why this is important to you?
I would love to sit here and tell you it was only to help people. That, it's a small part of it. But I get really, really bored. And I have found that doing family law is never the same. Every day in our office is different. It's exciting. I get to go try cases. So I really credit my family law journey on my inability to sit still.
So other disciplines are just, there's a lot more sitting still, I guess?
No, we're in court all the time, meeting clients, going to mediations. My office is pretty much in my car going back and forth between all these different places. So we don't sit still very long. Court's just a wonderful place for those of us who like competition. We get to go in there and do our thing. Believe it or not, that's probably the most peaceful part of my day, going in and arguing cases. But yeah, I like the competition part of it, and family law is never a dull moment.
Yeah, it seems that way. What are the most common types of cases that you handle out there in South Carolina?
Yeah, so family law is kind of a broad spectrum of different type cases. Of course, it includes divorces, custody cases, visitation cases, alimony, adoptions, name changes. When people say family law, it covers a bunch of different areas. But most people equate the term family law to divorces and custody cases.
Yeah, that's pretty much what people think of when they think of family law. Walk me through the timeline of a divorce case.
Yeah, so a typical divorce case usually takes about 9 months to a year. Of course, there's some cases that take a lot longer, just depending upon the complexity of the case or the animosity between parties, the personalities of the parties. But typically, you come to us, we start your case. We're usually in court in about 27 to 28 days for your first temporary hearing. After that, we have a mediation probably within 90 days after the first temporary hearing. And then, our calendar runs pretty fast here in South Carolina. So usually a contested case will probably occur in about 9 months after the initial date of filing. Now, of course, there's always exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, if you file a divorce case or custody case, you're more likely than not going to be in trial probably 9 months to a year after filing.
I feel like there's probably a lot of people who think they maybe can handle it on their own. And if someone doesn't hire an attorney to start, can they still hire one mid-divorce?
Yeah, absolutely. You can always hire a lawyer. I will tell you that when I'm the lawyer and the other side doesn't have a lawyer, it's hands down an unfair advantage for the side who has a lawyer. It is tougher if you hire a lawyer midstream because the lawyer may or may not be able to fix all the problems that you've created in that amount of time. So, one of the worst things that people can do is they try to save money on their divorces and think that if they get on the internet and read a little bit about divorce law, they forget that maybe some of those articles were written in the state of California, where I'm not, or by some middle schooler, and they get some really bad advice. And, when people try to go in and do it themselves, they're really doing themselves a disservice. They think they're saving money. They usually end up costing themselves more money in the end than if they just hired a lawyer at the very beginning. Because, one thing as lawyers, there's more to just the law, right? You have to know what the judge's preferences are. You have to know the case law, the statutes. And we have a great feel, since we're in court all the time, how a case is going to be run, how it's going to be handled by a judge. And if you don't know how to do that, you're just shooting yourself in the foot.
It's just like me with home projects. So what kind of mistakes do people make that can cause maybe a lawyer to really struggle to come in and fix or undo maybe what they've done?
Yeah, it's amazing how stupid people are, right? And you would think over generations we would have gotten smarter, but I think we've really gotten dumber. We see all these videos on YouTube and think, how can somebody be so stupid, knowing that they're being recorded? Well, people do the exact same thing in family law. Some of our best tools that we use in family law is going on to people's social media accounts using the text messages they send back and forth between their spouse or the other parent of their child, and they hang themselves because for whatever reason, they forget that these things can be reproduced. And we spend a lot of our time as lawyers going through text messages, email, social media accounts, and just presenting these to the judges, because the judges look at them and say, well, if these people are really acting like that outside of the judge's presence, it's just a terrible, terrible situation. So some of the biggest problems people cause for themselves is just forgetting that eventually what they do will be looked at by a third person. And that third person just happens to wear a robe, and they can happen to put you in jail or order you to do all kinds of sorts of things. So if I were going to recommend something to someone, if they're getting ready to go through any type of family court case, take down your social media accounts and respond to people with some civility. Yes, no, please. Text messages, keep them to about 4 words or less, and don't use 4-letter words. Kind of keep it simple, and just remember, everything you do is really under a microscope.
Do most family law cases settle out of court or go to trial? Because we're led to believe by TV and podcasts and all that stuff that everything goes to trial. What would you say the percentage is?
Since COVID, we've seen an increase of cases going to trial because people have seemed to become a lot less civil for some reason. But the majority of cases, they tend to settle. I would say 80 to 85% of cases settle outside of court, which is always a good thing. What people forget is if they do settle, they still keep control of the outcome of their case. Otherwise, they just put the case in front of a stranger who honestly doesn't really care whether they hurt their feelings. And that's the judge. And the judge doesn't care whether you're a good person or a bad person. They're going to issue a ruling. So if you can settle your case, by all means do it. Because if you don't, it's kind of a crapshoot sometimes.
I find it interesting that you said that since COVID, you feel like more cases are going to court and you think it's a civility thing. That's interesting to me. What makes you say that?
I think we can all agree COVID was weird, right? I mean,
that's true.
I don't know what it did to society. I don't know whether because we were so removed from each other for so long, and we transitioned from in-person conversations to like we're doing right now, virtual conversations, that we kind of remove ourselves. We lost some empathy with the lack of contact. And, there were some different rules set during COVID. We got away with things a little bit differently. So whatever it was that happened during that period of time, we've seen it continue. Lawyers talk about all the time about the COVID effect. And we still see it, even in South Carolina, where we didn't really have the shutdowns that other places had, but we still are feeling the ramifications, and we pinpoint it back to when COVID started.
So wow, there's actually a term lawyers use called the COVID effect, and so it's definitely obviously widespread then, and it's not just an isolated thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Interesting.
That's true.
What are the most common reasons a case would go to trial?
Personalities. I tell all my clients, the facts of a case are not really what run a case or dictate a case. It's the personalities involved, and we just simply. You see it just in the everyday world. Some people just can't get along with anybody. Where you and I can come in, we can both agree that the desk that I'm sitting behind is a desk. Some people won't agree to that. They'll say no, that's something else. So it's the personalities involved, because everybody has the ability to resolve their case, right? And people they've lost a lot of their common sense. They've lost sight of what they're trying to gain. Sometimes they kind of lose side of the forest because of the trees. We see that lots of times. They get caught up in the fight. And when people take their eyes off of what they're really trying to accomplish, taking the focus off of what they're trying to do, or, they don't look long-term, right? They just keep that short-term view upon their case. And they forget that eventually, when this thing's said and done, they still have to deal with all these people that they've hurt so badly. So I think it's the personalities of people that really drive the trials. Is
there any sort of data that talks about that there's more divorces since COVID?
Probably. Yeah. I know my business has picked up since COVID. I think you can easily go and look at the numbers. We meet with judges and they say the numbers we talk to other lawyers, their numbers are up. So I've not seen an official number, but I can tell you, the divorces are up. They're up.
Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. I mean, there was a lot of talk about people. It stressed people's relationships, marriages, everything. So I guess that does make sense. What factors do you look at as the family law attorney when advising a client on whether or not to take their case to trial?
I think it's a business analysis, really. It's an ROI, return on investment. What's the risk versus reward analysis look like? In South Carolina, mediation is required before you can actually even ask to have a trial. So when we're going through that mediation process, people will get kind of close to each other in mediation, and then they have to make the decision. Is that distance between the two desires, how big is it? And is it worth giving in on something rather than risk losing a lot more? So I try to treat it always, and with my clients, treat it as a business decision, because when that's all a divorce is. It's really the dissolution of a business that just happens to be your marriage, where you've accumulated assets and debts, or two people fighting for their child. At the end of the day, it all comes down to what are you willing to risk?
But it's the emotion is the part I would imagine that people can't separate, right?
Yeah. Emotion causes us to lose what? Logic lots of times. We all think we're right. Our perception is always right. And I guess that's human nature. Some people are more high strung than others. You get money involved, that people really lose their minds over that, and the emotion takes over. Some people just want to fight, and they just cause themselves to really lose, I think, in the end. I tell my clients, I think you make a mistake if you go to trial. Now, of course, there's some cases you just have to, but if you put your life in front of a stranger, the judge, to make a decision about your case, I've been through a divorce. We worked ours out. I wouldn't want a stranger deciding how my life was going to be for forever. So I definitely preach, try to get your case worked out. Come up with some type of middle ground. Give and take, all of that is worth it. It really is.
I know it's probably impossible to remove the emotion, but if you can curb the emotion, if you can just think about it, like you said, as a business decision, not only, do you maybe get more or not have to fight as much, but it just speed of everything and the smoothness of it, I feel like would be way, way better.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what one of the hottest commodities is these days? Peace, right? Everybody wants peace, and it's true. I think that should be our goal in most everything we do, right? Attain that peace. And it's no different than in the legal world. So if you can figure out what it's going to take to get you to that point, maybe it's giving the other side a little bit more, taking a little bit less. I think that needs to be the goal. And people look at settlement sometimes as giving in, letting the other side get what they want. But that's so narrow-sighted, because really, that outcome of your case is only going to have effect for a certain amount of time. Eventually, life goes on, but is it worth all the turmoil, all the drama, all the cost? Lawyers, we appreciate your money. Fight as much as you want to, but at the end of the day, is it really worth it?
What else is going to be accomplished by continuing the fight?
Yeah, that's exactly right. At the end, what are you going to get? What are you going to get? So
do you try to preach mediation and all other means of settling a family law matter be exhausted before deciding to take the case to trial? Is it just you're like, this is a last resort type thing?
Yeah, no, I think absolutely. And I think most lawyers where I live preach, get your case settled. At the end of the day, we make a lot more money when we try a case. But I think people have a better appreciation, enjoy their outcome when they settle a case, because they do keep control. It's very frustrating as a lawyer to talk to clients who think their case is the best. Most of everybody's case is about the same. You're not going to sway the judge just because they're going to like you more or like your facts more. Most cases are pretty boring in the facts. So, unless you can really grab the judge's attention for some reason, you're not going to have any greater outcome than you could attain earlier in the process by going through mediation and settling the case.
Yeah, we all want to be right, and we all think that we've got some edge. We've got something that's different than the status quo, right?
Yeah, that's human nature.
Sure.
Right. That's human nature. We love ourselves, right? We think our part's better than your part, and that can get you in a hole sometimes, especially in the legal.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I do think I'm right all the time, though. I'll definitely say that.
Probably.
I think I'm right about that too. So, all right. So someone has decided to get a divorce. They've decided to get a divorce. What should they look for when they want to hire a family law or divorce attorney to take the case, to try to mediate it, and then take the case to trial if necessary?
Yeah. So experience, first of all. You find somebody that likes to go to trial. I always love it when there's a lawyer on the other side that I know doesn't like to go to trial, because I get a better deal in the negotiation process. So if you're going to hire a lawyer, make sure you have one that's willing to go the whole distance. Hire a lawyer that gets good reviews. I mean, what's better than Google reviews? I mean, they're a great indicator of that lawyer's success. Look at what that lawyer's staff looks like. Are they big enough to handle your case? Family court cases have become a lot more complicated than when I first started almost 30 years ago. I mean, we'd get cases done really fast. The files were really thin. They've gotten so voluminous now. So the lawyer that you team up with, they've got to have the staff, they've got to have the resources. You even have to use technology, right? You don't want to hire a lawyer that's not up to speed in technology. We use AI all the time. It's a great helper with everything. So, don't go shop for price, because cheap lawyers, dime a dozen, right? Get someone that is worth what your life is worth. You don't want to put your hands in the hands of or your life in the hands of someone who's cheap. Do you want a cheap heart surgeon? No, I want the best heart surgeon there is. I want the smartest pilot of my plane there is. So I think you look at a lawyer just like that. You want to make sure that you get someone who's qualified and who's been there lots and lots of time.
Why do you think it's gotten so much more complicated during your career?
I think people have gotten more complicated. People have gotten richer. I mean, 30 years ago, people didn't have as much money. We have become more transient. We didn't have people moving long distances. Now we have a lot more relocation cases where one parent will live here and one parent will live in California. People used to kind of stay put. Technology has really made our lives as lawyers a lot more complicated because we have more evidence now. We didn't have to deal with social media. We didn't have to deal with text and email and all that. It was just, doctor's records, school records, all of that. So, the world's become more complicated. It's, in an attempt to make things more simple, we've made things more difficult, I think. And, when I first started, we didn't have computers, believe it or not. I remember buying our first computer. Now we use typewriters. Now everything's faster. People want things done sooner. They cannot wait for a response to an email or a text. So just people have become more demanding, really. I mean, a lot of that has to do with it. And their expectations have gotten a lot more difficult to deal with.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Well, thanks for tuning in to Off the Record, a legal podcast with attorney Rhett Burney. For more information or to connect with Rhett, you can visit rhettburney.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Rhett, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Kevin, you take care. Good to see you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.